The story of Nikolai Jumagaliev, the cannibal firefighter. Nikolai Jumagaliev was born in 1952 in the Soviet Union, in an ordinary family. He had 4 sisters, but one of them mysteriously disappeared. As a child, he seemed normal, quiet, polite, loved animals, read a lot. Girls liked him, and he was always surrounded by female attention. After school, he traveled across the USSR, changing jobs every few months. Eventually, he returned home and became a firefighter. But behind this normal life, something dark was growing. Nikolai was a womanizer, constantly catching venereal diseases. He began to hate women for it. Later, when a woman he fell for admitted she was married and didn't love him back, his hatred only deepened. He started to believe women were the root of all problems, prisons, crimes, unhappiness. He even confessed that he saw hallucinations of women's body parts and organs, which gave him sexual excitement. His first murder, by 1978, he was preparing to kill. He picked his victim carefully, someone he thought was immoral. It took him 2 years to finally act. Her name was Nadezhda, which means hope. She was a kind girl who had just come back from church. Nikolai later described. It was dark. Dogs started howling. I ran after her with a knife. When she turned around, I stabbed her in the chest. Then I dragged her body away, cut it into pieces, and hid them. I felt spiritual pleasure, like I had finally reached my goal. He also admitted to drinking her blood and trying to cook her fat in milk, believing it would bring him closer to God. Her body parts were found a month later, scattered in a dump. At first, police thought it was some kind of religious sacrifice, and they arrested the wrong man. Nikolai was still free. Later that summer, Nikolai met a young woman named Tatiana. Their meeting seemed almost like faked. She was standing at a bus stop after visiting the police station. Earlier that day, her apartment had been robbed, and she had just written a report. She felt tired, upset, and vulnerable. That's when Nikolai walked up. They started talking. The city was small, and Tatiana had already heard of him. Everyone described him as a kind, reliable man, someone respected in the neighborhood. That made her feel safe. When he offered to walk her home, she agreed. That night, he didn't just walk her home, he stayed. And soon, they began seeing each other regularly. For Tatiana, it felt like she had met the right man at the right time. She believed it was destiny. But behind this good man image, Nikolai was hiding a secret life. The other woman, Nikolai was not faithful. He was also involved with another woman, a petty thief, the same one who had robbed Tatiana's apartment. When Tatiana caught the thief wearing her stolen clothes, she called the police, and the woman was arrested. At first, Tatiana felt relief and even happiness when her things were returned. But Nikolai was furious. He told her, "You should have told me instead of going to the police. Now they'll be jailed, and I feel sorry for them." What Tatiana didn't know was that Nikolai lived with a thief as well. He convinced Tatiana to withdraw her complaint, and she obeyed. Her love for him blinded her to the truth. Later, he even brought the thief to Tatiana's home, saying they all needed to make peace. He asked Tatiana to prepare dinner, while he went with the other woman into his shed, pretending they needed to talk. Tatiana cooked in the kitchen, while in the shed, Nikolai attacked the other woman. He later confessed that he first had sex with her, both in normal and perverse forms, but then he started beating her, especially in the stomach, something that gave him pleasure. Watching the pain twist her face, the woman screamed. Tatiana, worried, ran to the shed and banged on the door. Suddenly the screams stopped. From inside, Nikolai shouted, Stop knocking. Go back and cook dinner. We'll be there soon." Shaken, Tatiana returned to the kitchen. Inside the shed, Nikolai strangled the woman to death. Then, calmly, he climbed up to the attic where he kept his tools. He chopped her body into pieces, salted the flesh, and stored it in a barrel meat for later. That evening, when Tatiana returned to the shed, the door was unlocked. She stepped inside, and in the darkness, her hand brushed against something cold, a severed arm. Terrified, she screamed and ran outside, hiding in the bush. Moments later, she saw Nikolai come out, looking for her, calling her name. She ran home and stayed hidden for 2 days. When she finally saw him again, she demanded answers. Nikolai calmly told her that the woman had argued with him, that he pushed her, and she had fallen and hit her head. He shrugged and said she left afterward. Tatiana believed him. She loved him. He had promised to marry her, and so the crime was buried, just like the woman in the shed. Nobody knows to this day how Nikolai managed to fool the doctors. They declared him healthy and let him walk free. But just a year after his release, he killed again. A young mother became his victim, stabbed 18 times, while her baby was in the same room, and that was only the beginning. Within a short time, Nikolai murdered and ate 2 more women. His hunger was growing, and his cruelty knew no limits. But Nikolai quickly grew bored. Killing in secret wasn't enough anymore. He wanted fame and recognition. So one evening he invited his friends over. He set the table, bought plenty of alcohol, and soon everyone was drunk. The guests laughed, ate, and asked for some fun. That's when Nikolai made a shocking offer. "Do you want to see Tanya's head?" They thought he was joking. They imagined he meant naked Tanya and eagerly agreed. While the guests continued eating the meat dishes on the table, Nikolai disappeared into the other room. When he returned, he was holding something that made the entire house freeze. It was Tatiana's bloody, severed head. The guests instantly sobered up. One of them had a nervous breakdown. Another ran out the door, straight to the police. Nikolai didn't expect this reaction. He believed that by feeding his friends human flesh, they had become accomplices. He thought they would fear him, maybe even respect him. Instead, they betrayed him. When the police arrived, they found Nikolai calm and collected. He claimed his friend had committed the crime, and he was only guarding the body until authorities came. The officers hesitated, confused by the scene, and in that brief moment, Nikolai jumped out the window and vanished. Other witnesses tell a slightly different story, that he was caught with a chunk of human meat in his hand. According to this version, he had been drinking with friends and women, took one of them into a room, had sex with her, and then killed her to see if the soul leaves the body. He said he'd read in a book that drinking human blood could bring prophecy, and he wanted to test it. When police finally arrived, they claimed they found him naked, smeared in blood, sitting on the bed and cutting up a body. But again he managed to escape, this time into the mountains. News spread like wildfire. Authorities declared a state of emergency. Citizens were warned not to leave their homes. The entire city lived in fear, knowing a cannibal was on the loose. Eventually, Nikolai was caught in the home of one of his relatives. At first, police found nothing, but during a second search, they noticed fresh nails in the floorboards. When they tore the boards open, there he was, hiding under the floor. By then, Nikolai already had a plan. He told investigators he was mentally ill, obsessed with black magic. He explained that he slit throats and stared into them, trying to see the soul leave the body. He claimed he drank blood for visions, but nothing happened. He said so many bizarre things that people started to believe he was insane. In 1980, he was officially arrested, but instead of completing the investigation, authorities sent him for psychiatric examination. Doctors diagnosed him as mentally ill. He was locked in a hospital for several months and then transferred to compulsory treatment. In 1989, doctors once again declared him cured. He was moved to a regular hospital, and once again he escaped. Before disappearing, he visited his mother and said chillingly, "Be ready for anything. They might send me to prison for another case." For 2 years, no one could find him. His whereabouts were a mystery. Witnesses gave conflicting reports, and even the police sketches looked different each time. Finally, he was captured again. Nikolai himself later claimed he had been living in the mountains, like a hermit, far away from people. But few believed that story. In reality, he moved around different regions, staying hidden, until he finally appeared in Uzbekistan. There, in the Fergana region, he was arrested in 1991 for something as simple as stealing sheep. He tried to pretend he was Chinese, but authorities recognized him. Soon after, he was sent back to Kazakhstan and locked in a psychiatric hospital once more, where he remains to this day. Nobody understands how he managed to avoid prison his entire life. As of the release of this video, he is 73 years old and still lying in a psychiatric hospital.